Well, hey there, Changemakers. Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. I'm your host, Amy Van Meel, and I'm here to inspire and teach changemakers like you, entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, and people who are doing big things in the world, some tips, tricks, things about business, and we're doing some personal growth on the way. With that, let's dive into today's topic. Well, hey there, Changemakers. Welcome to the Dare to Begin Small and Mighty podcast. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. I am fresh off a week away. My guy and I spent a week at his family's cabin, and so I spent a week just sitting on my duff beside the lake. And I have to admit, actually, I love being around water. It's one of my favorite things in the world. In fact, if I think about, calm and peace, which is a great spot that I like to go mentally, especially if I'm feeling a little bit stressed out, I'm always sitting next to a lake. And so it is beautiful to have the opportunity to spend an entire week at the lake. And this is the first time, I think probably since I started my business almost 5 years ago, that I actually took time off in the fullest capacity. So I wasn't checking for text messages every single day. I wasn't monitoring my email every single day. I wasn't worried about things that were happening while I was away. Now, I've been away from the office in the last 4.5 years. I spent 4 weeks in Europe a few years ago. But even then, every day I was thinking about my clients and I was thinking about the fact that I'm away, which means I'm not earning money, which means, all these other things. So this is the first time that I've actually spent some time away where I wasn't dumping all that stuff all over myself. And it's been a really good experience, I think. And yeah, it was a good week away. It's always interesting to me. So my guy's family loves to be at the cabin and I love his family dearly. I love spending time with them. But if you don't know this about me already, I'm a total introvert. So I get my energy from being on my own. I don't get energized necessarily by being around people. I love being around people, but I really get energized from having time on my own. So when I spend an extended amount of time around other people, where it's literally every hour of the day, with the exception of the time that I'm sleeping, I'm around other people, it actually can be a bit stressful for me. And so I had to be really cognizant last week while I was away to give myself moments of self-care, moments where I just close myself off in a empty room somewhere that I could find, even a 5 by 5 square foot of privacy, and do a little meditation. Or I would allow myself in the mornings, even after I woke up and I knew everybody else was getting up and having breakfast, to just lie in bed and put some quiet music on and give myself that time. Because if I didn't, then I would just, by the time we reached Wednesday, we got to the cabin on Saturday. So by the time Wednesday would have arrived, I would have been a basket case. So it's really important, if you're like me, if you're an introvert like me, first of all, hands up, soul sisters, I totally get it. But it's so important to make sure that you give yourself what you need. So if you have a crazy schedule right now, if you have lots of people asking for your time or for your attention, or if you are about to head out on a vacation, then I suggest that you just keep in mind that it's still important to take care of yourself. And it's not only okay, I highly encourage you to do so. So I've been thinking a lot about, the time that I was away, and it was, like I said, it was very relaxing. We're on the lake. My guy used to windsurf and so still has all the boards for windsurfing, which we now use as paddle boards. And so he introduced me to this idea of paddleboarding on the lake when I first met him a few years ago, and I love it. And so there was a day when I'm like, I need some space to myself. It's the middle of the day. My guy was napping in the room, so there wasn't anywhere for me to go. I grabbed a paddleboard and headed out to the lake, and it was beautiful. I just sat out on the lake. I was, 100 yards from shore, and I could hear boats and I could hear birds and I could hear people on the beach and I could hear people mowing their grass. And it was just lovely. It was lovely to just be in this bubble all on my own. So, like I said, I definitely recommend, and no matter whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, doesn't matter. When you're a business owner, I absolutely recommend that you give yourself time away. You hear me talk about this a lot, the importance of giving yourself time away from your work, and I'm usually talking about that within your week. So I don't believe that we need to be working 16-hour days. And trust me when I tell you that even though I believe that, that does not mean that I don't get a little bit of an attack of the guilt when I hear people who became successful because they work 16-hour days. There's still a little niggling thought in my mind that sometimes pops up and says, would I be more successful now if I was working 16-hour days? And the answer that always comes back for me is almost immediately no, because here's why. I don't function past a certain amount of time. I am not good first thing in the morning. So that was a huge challenge when we were at the lake. I really value the quietness of our mornings. So in our home, it's just me and our guy. I really value the time to be able to literally ground into my day, to have a shower, to have my breakfast, to have a cup of coffee. There's no need or expectation of conversation. Whereas when we were at the lake, and of course we have friends out and the family's out, then as soon as you're up, you're expected to converse with other people. And that was a challenge for me because like I said, I really enjoy and I cherish that time to ground in the morning. So it's more than just, taking holiday time in your business. I so believe it's important for you to also give yourself time during the week to just, do your own thing, whether that thing is baking something that you enjoy, or spending time with your loved ones, or reading a book, or going for a walk, or a bike ride. We came back a little bit early from the cabin because the weather wasn't so great the last 2 days. And so we spent Saturday afternoon and Sunday in Calgary. And on Sunday, we went for a bike ride. And I think my guy, he was like a man possessed. We have never biked so far. And I grew up biking, like riding a bike, obviously like all kids did, but I've never like done a crazy bike ride or anything. I think we did like 30 or 40 kilometers and not a leisurely 30 or 40 kilometers. Like we were hoofing it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he was leading and I kept losing him and then I'd catch up and I'm like, by the time we got home, let me tell you, I've never been so grateful to see my car. I think than I was that day because I'm like, sweet Lord, we're finally back. I could get off my bike. Everything was sore. Everything was tired. So I definitely recommend that you take some time, whether it's in a day, whether it's on a weekend, whether you're going on holidays. I know it's summertime, so I'm sure there's a lot of you that are getting ready to take some time off. If you're not listening to this in the summertime, if you're catching up on this later down the road, it doesn't really matter what time of year it is. Just make sure you give yourself some time. All right, change makers. So we're not here actually to talk today about giving yourself time away. What I want to talk with you today is I want to ask you how clear you are on who it is that you are serving in your business. So when I say how clear are you, you'll know if you've started a business, if you've downloaded my free download, the 10 Steps to Launch guide, which is all about getting your business up and launched. If you've downloaded that guide and started working through it, you'll know that one of the early steps is to define who your ideal customer is. I've heard of it as your ideal customer avatar, or usually it's around your ideal customer. So really your perfect client. Who's the perfect person that you would want to serve? Now, this can be a huge challenge, particularly when you're starting. So I know when I started my design business all those years ago, this question came up. I was in a business course at the time and they're talking about, who are you serving? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm serving homeowners. I'm serving homeowners who, they want to have a lovely home and they need some help getting there. Like that was probably about as clear as I was at the time because I didn't know anything about the idea of having this ideal client or this perfect client. So because I had just started, I think I had 1 or 2 clients at the time. I was brand new, guys. Like I hadn't been in business for very long at all. And here I was trying to define this perfect client. And the goal was that once I defined this perfect client, I could then take that and tailor my marketing messaging and clarify who I'm, going after, who are the people that I want to align with. When people ask, what's the kind of person you're looking for? This is when I would tell them, well, then my perfect client is this person. And it felt like a lot of pressure because I was brand new and I'm like, what if I'm going after the wrong person? So I did the exercise. I'm a total type A in the sense that like you give me an exercise and I just have to do it because that's just the way I am. But I somehow kept in the back of my mind that this could change a little bit over time. And I'm so grateful that that was seated in the back of my mind because as my business continued to grow and evolve, it did change a little bit. So the ideal client that I had modeled after was my first client, and she's been my longest client, and I love her dearly. But there have been slight modifications to my perfect client as my business has grown, as I've taken on new clients. So I want to go over 4 simple points today to help you get really clear on who it is that you're serving. And I touch on this in a moment, but I want to just put this little seed in the back of your mind. Even as I go through these points, remember, this may take time to clarify. So I would encourage you to work on it now, to take what you can at the moment and then be open to it changing. And I'll remind you of that. It's a little bit later in one of the steps, but I just want to add that in at the front end here before we dive right in. Okay, so the first step in getting clear on who it is that you're serving in your business is to start with why. So I want you to think about, why do you want to serve in this way? And by that I mean, whatever your business is. So for me, when I started 5 years ago, it was interior design. Why do you want to serve in this way? So if my thought was to be an interior designer, that was my training and that was my education, why did I want to start a business as an interior designer versus, say, going back to school and becoming a massage therapist? Or versus, say, doing one of the MLM type businesses or a financial type business? Why was I specifically wanting to do interior design? Now, I understand my why, but I want you to understand, why do you want to serve in this way? Because, and go beyond just the simple fact of, well, I have education and training in this, and so I feel it makes sense. It's logical to start a business, right? Think about really why you want to serve in this way. Because the truth is, as long as you continue to look at it as a service to your other human beings, you will do well. If you look at this as a have to, as a logical progression in life, and well, this is the next thing that I need to do, it's kind of the idea of the old adage. You meet a guy, you get engaged, you get married, well, then you have to have kids, and then you have to do these things, and you need to take these vacations, and right? Like, I'm already boring myself just thinking about it that way. So think about your business. Why do you want to serve in this way? And then I want you to think about, why do you feel you're best to serve? The truth is, we all bring our own innate abilities and talents and personalities into our business. So there might be a reason that you are best suited to serve in this business. So let's go back to the idea of, when I started my business as an interior designer, I looked at interior design and I knew that's what I wanted to do. But let's say, for example, that one other business I might have been considering was something in the financial sector, whether it was, I don't want to get into details, but let's say something in the financial sector. If I was looking at why do I want to serve there? Why do I feel I'm best to serve there? Possibly one of the reasons that I might have had is that I saw my parents struggle financially, and that I didn't want to have that for other people, right? That's a great why. And why do you feel you're best to serve in this way? Now, when it came to interior design, the reason, and it took some time, I'll be honest, it took some time for the clarity to come around this. But as I kept asking the question and I kept being open to the possibility of a response, I began to understand that the reason I felt I was best to serve in interior design is that I knew in the deepest parts of me how important it is to have a space that really supports you. So my why for my interior design business, I'm not going to get into it because it's kind of a story, but it stems from how I grew up and the fact that I really struggled to have a space that was my own, that I was always demanded by others around me to be this person. And this person that they were demanding me to be was not who I was. And so that really was a huge challenge for me when I was young, in my formative years. And looking back, what I realized, the only space that I felt was in my control, that I could have some influence over and really have a reflection of my true self, the person that I knew I was to be, not this person that others expected me to be, was in my bedroom. Because as a child, that's really the only space that you have. And so I regularly would rearrange my bedroom whenever it would be like, this isn't working for me anymore. Let's try something different. Let's do this. And you know what's so crazy? I thought that was normal. I thought that that's what all kids did. Well, I had no idea that other kids were like, no, the bed's been there since I was 4 and I don't care. It's the same spot. I moved it all over the room. I rearranged my room on the regular. That was just something that I did. So it wasn't until much, much later that I realized what I had been doing. So when you're getting clear on who it is that you're serving, I want you to start with why. So why do you want to serve in this way? And why do you feel that you're best to serve? Now notice, first step has nothing to do with who you're serving, right? It's only about why this business. So it's really good to get clear on that first. Then step 2 is to define the who. So now here's where you're going to get super specific. And again, let me remind you, this specificity may take time. Clarity often comes over time. So don't beat yourself up if you don't know exactly what you're doing right now. The goal here is to get as specific as possible about your perfect client. So I mentioned this earlier, your ideal client, your ideal customer avatar, however you want to look at it or name that particular person. I like to think of it as your perfect client. You want to be as specific as possible about this person that you're going to serve. Now, here's where a little bit of confusion can come when you're early on in your business. It seems confusing to define it as a person because obviously in order for your business to be successful and to work, you need to serve more than one person. So you might be tempted to go after a group and to generalize out who you are serving so that you can focus on a group of people. Now here's why you don't want to do that. The more general you become, the less that you will connect. So really good marketing, if you pay attention to any kind of marketing, whether it's commercials, whether it's, like a visual commercial or something on the radio, or you notice like a little tagline or something, if you're on Facebook or Instagram, you're going to see those sponsored stories, right? Or the sponsored ads that come through. Pay attention to the text that's in there. There are going to be a whole lot that just don't land. That you're like, whatever, I'm not interested. Whether you're not engaged by the video or whatever, pay attention to the copy. And I want you to pay extra attention to the copy that really engages you. If there's copy that you're like, oh my gosh, how does this person know that's exactly what I'm thinking? Right? The reason that they know is they got ultra specific about who their ideal customer is. They know exactly who their perfect customer is. They're going precisely after them and they've defined them as a single person. I know lots of entrepreneurs who they'll name their perfect client. So they might be like, my perfect client, I like to call her Jenny. And Jenny has, these things going on and she likes these things. So do what you will. I don't. I'm not big on naming things like that. But if that makes it clear for you, then go on. I love it. Like there's nothing saying that you can't. But you want to be really specific. And again, this may take some time. So a great way to start, if you have already begun your business, let's say you're at the very early stages or you've been at it for a little while, if you have some clients or even a client, if you can think of one person that you've served you would just want to replicate that person over and over and over again, use that person as your starting point. So like I said, when I started this for my design business 5 years ago, I had my very first client, and again, she's been my longest standing client. She was exactly the kind of person that I wished to serve. So I used her as my benchmark to begin to understand who the people are that I want to serve. Who's this specific group that I'm here to help, right? Now, I want you, when you're doing this work, it's important to get really specific. And I know I keep saying specific and you're like, what do you mean by that, Amy? So here's what I mean by specific. You need to look at the demographics of the person. That means, are they male or female? Are they an adult or are they a child? Are they, what's their age range? So let's say your target is women. Are they women from 18 to 65? That's too general. You want to really tighten that up. So maybe if you're working with young adults, maybe your target is women from 16 to 20. Or if your focus is more on moms, then likely your age range will be more like 29 to 39. Right? So you want to be very specific. Keep it tight. Remember, you're thinking about this as one person. One person does not exhibit all the same things at 18 as they do at 65. There's an enormous array of types of people in that range. So if you think about it as one person, if you have that ideal client that you've already served and you're like, okay, this is the person I want to go after, then just add a few years on either end. So if your perfect customer is 35, then maybe you say, okay, the target that I'm going after right now is 31 to 39. Right? So basically people in their 30s. So that is a good way to get started. You want to get a little bit more focused on that as well. So think about their income. Maybe you're targeting a specific type of job or career type. And then you can look at some of the softer things. I believe they're called the psychographics. And those include things like their interests. Do they like sports? Are they people who want to go to the orchestra all the time? Do they do a lot of volunteer work? Are they really family oriented, or do they prefer to be a bit more on their own? Are they a parent? And if they're a parent, are they, how many kids do they have? What age roughly are those kids? Again, you're thinking about a range. If you're not specifically focused on, this is so funny. I was just talking about this with my guy last night about the idea of the dog mom. I said, I'm really curious. What do you think the next, I'm giving air quotes here. What do you think the next mom will be? Because up until, I don't know, a few years ago, it was always, the mompreneur, the people who have the kids. And now it's this whole dog mom thing. I'm not a mom of any variety, let me just say. And I do feel sometimes that puts me, I don't know if a disadvantage is the right word, but it does put me a little bit on the out in some conversations because I don't have kids. I don't have a desire to have kids, although I love them. I think they're amazing. I love being an aunt. I love hanging out with them. We have no desire to have a dog or pets because my guy and I have a life that is, we're out a lot. So we need the freedom to be able to be away from the home. So it just our lifestyle doesn't support having a pet. So of course, then I'm not a dog mom either, right? Anyway, I digress. But think about, the kind of interests that your perfect client might have. And again, I am going to reiterate this again because I don't want you to get hung up on they have to be this exact person. Start where you are right now. You will likely need to do some guesswork, especially if you're brand new to your business and you haven't had the opportunity to serve anybody yet. So start with who you think you'd like to serve, who you think you would be best to serve. Remember, we talked about starting with why in the first step. So why are you best situated to serve this person? And fill in the blanks, and then be open to more clarity coming over time, because it will happen. As you gain clients, you will find that you will get more clarity over time. When I started, I knew that in general, my clients were more likely to be women than men. I knew that inherently. It's just part of the business. More often, a woman is going to hire an interior designer than a guy. That does not mean that men won't hire my services. And in fact, I have been hired by men to help with their home, or their wife has been really struggling, and so the husband has hired me to help the wife, whatever. It's not to say that I don't work with guys, but most often my clients are women. And so I focus my copy, the words that I use in my posts or my blogs, more specifically tailored to women, because they're generally going to be the person who's going to hire me. And guys totally understand, okay, she's talking to women, but that does not exclude me, right? Okay, so that's how you're going to define the who. So give yourself like 20 or 30 minutes maybe to sit down and figure this out. And again, be open to it. Do not sit down and say, I don't know who I'm here to serve. I don't know what this is going to look like. As soon as you say, I don't know, you shut off the gates of information. So even though you may not know, just sit there and say, I'm open to receiving information. I'm open to this process. And it will take, it might come right away, or it might take some time. But that's okay, because you got time. You can keep working on this and keep tweaking. Heck, I've been in my business for 5 years. I'm still tweaking a little bit every now and again, as I notice that my clients might shift, as I notice that I shift. So that's a big one. We're not talking about personal growth in this particular episode, but I've talked about it in others. As I grow and evolve and change, I know my clientele is going to also change. I'm going to attract different people to me, right? So be okay with that. It's totally okay, and it's a completely natural thing. It should happen that way. All right, step number 3 is to come back to why. So when you're getting clear on who you're serving, we started with the why, right? And we were a bit more general on that point. I asked you to think about, why do you want to serve in this way? Why do you feel you're best to serve? Now you've gone through the step of defining your perfect client. Even if it's not, a full breakdown of the list, you now have an idea of who it is that you'd really like to serve. So now you're going to come back to why. And you're going to ask yourself, why do I want to serve this specific person, this specific group of people, right? Like, we're looking at your ideal client as a specific person. Why do I want to serve this specific person? And your why is going to be different from everybody else's why. Even if you had the exact same perfect client as 3 other people in the room, let's say there's 5 of you in the room right now, and 4 of you all have the exact same perfect client, all 4 of you will have a different why. That's the really cool thing about why, is that it becomes a huge differentiating factor between you and anybody else, which is one of the reasons why I don't really believe in the idea of competition, because there are no 2 people that are totally alike on this planet. Even identical twins are not totally alike. So I think that's a really cool way to remind yourself that even if, let's say the person to your right, they have the exact same perfect client in mind, they have the exact same education, they have the exact same amount of experience, they've had all the exact same jobs. That will be weird, but let's say that happens. So professionally, you all have the exact same experience and skills. Your personalities will alter like your clients dramatically, because you're not the same person. You bring different experiences to the table. So it doesn't matter anymore than whether they have, more years of experience on this or they have a better skill set in this, because the truth is your perfect client, even though they're the same, may have something that they're looking for that they'll find in you that they wouldn't find in that person beside you. Right? So if I look at like interior design is a perfect example of this. Interior design itself, I suppose, could be broken down into some kind of a system. I love talking about the whole idea of AI, and I had this conversation with my brother-in-law a couple weeks ago about, that all the jobs could be replaced by AI, and I vehemently disagreed. Absolutely not. Can that be possible? And the reason why, I'm never too concerned about job security in interior design in the sense of, my business or this particular industry is going to be taken over by AI, because it's so personal. And there are things and readings that you get from people that I don't think you can pick up any other way than being human. And he disagreed. That's cool. We agreed to disagree. But it's important to remember that you're more than just a list of your accomplishments. You are a living, breathing, experiencing human being, which means that you have a whole set of stuff that comes with you that has nothing to do with your skill set. And it's that set of stuff that will either draw or push away potential clients, right? All right. I'm assuming you're nodding with me because, well, I'm nodding to myself. So you're going to be nodding with me. That's just how we're going to roll forward. So I want you to think about, the why. Why are you here to serve this specific person? Why these people? Why you? And then the next one is why you for these specific people. I sort of alluded to that just a second ago, but basically, it's not just why do you want to serve this specific group of people, but why you for this specific group of people. So like I said, when it came to interior design, and this took some time for me to understand, the why me specifically for my clients is that I know what it is to really need a space that supports me, that isn't about what other people think of me, that isn't about what the world tells me that I need to be, should be, whatever, that is just about me, who I am as I am, and that's okay. Now, the really cool thing, I think a few podcasts ago, I mentioned that I landed my first 5-figure contract, which was huge, and I'm super excited, and I'm now into the project. But one of the reasons that I was offered that, even the opportunity to bid on that project, because it's a commercial project, which is not something that I usually do. I think I've done a handful in all the years that I've done interior design. But one of the reasons that I was offered that is that the client wanted the specific abilities that I bring, in the sense of, I understand that you are not dumb. I understand that you have desires and thoughts and ideas that you want to bring into the project. And really what you need is someone to help draw those out from you and create a cohesive whole out of that. So I can't speak for all commercial designers because I know very few of them, but from what I see from the commercial industry, that isn't often the case. I believe that most often what happens on the commercial side is they're given their marching orders. This is what we're looking for. And then they present the ideas forward. They may take some information or guidance from the client, but for the most part, it's not an intricate process. It's, designer presenting to client. This project is very intricate. This project is really, it's a merging of the two. So I would never, ever presume to tell a client that their ideas are stupid, that it's not going to work, that I'm better than they are. I am not about that in any way, shape, or form. And I know a lot of people feel hesitation around hiring a designer because of that, right? So that quality in me, because that is something that came from my experience, that needing to be okay as who I am and to be able to be seen and recognized for who I am and supported in that way, I know that comes out and translates to my clients. when it comes to this business, to Dare to Begin, the reason that I know why I am so good for my potential students is because I've been there. I've done the work. I've cried the tears. I have, banged my head against the wall in every friggin' possible way. I've been there. That's why I know I am the best suited to help the people that I'm after. And when I talk about defining the who, I'm still getting clarity on who my perfect customer is. Who is my perfect student for these programs that I'm developing? I have a pretty good idea. I know that, it's more likely going to be a female. They're likely going to be, say, 29 to 39. They have, aspirations for serving in a bigger way, but they don't necessarily know how to get there. That's what I started with. And since being away, which has been fantastic, this is one of the reasons why I highly encourage time away from both from the office during the week, but also taking some holiday time and really checking right out, is that it allowed things to trickle through where I realized, I'm really passionate about people who are bootstrapping their own business. And by bootstrapping, I mean this whole venture is self-funded. So all the money that comes into the business to grow the business either comes from a paycheck from a job you have already, or it's coming from you. You don't have venture capitalists that are coming in. You're not seeking funding from somebody else. You're doing it on your own, and you're doing all the work on your own. And that's the people that I'm passionate about because that's me. That's who I am. That's how I started. I didn't grow my interior design business having a huge amount of seed money from my parents or from a job payout or anything like that. I literally started my business. I got laid off from my job. I had 4 months of EI. That's it. And I had to make a go of it. And for those of you who know, in Calgary, this is the end of 2014 that I started. That's when the oil crashed. So we had a city that I was brand new to that was having a robust economy. And all of a sudden people were getting laid off left, right, and center. And not just lower paying people in influential positions, in management and C-suite positions were losing their jobs. So that was a huge challenge. And so I had to figure out how to build a brand new business and make it work in spite of all of that, right? And so I knew when I started, I had the sense that it was going to be successful. I can't tell you other than it was just this innate sense that it was going to work. And I remember I can feel the carpet under my feet from where I was standing when I was saying to my guy on the phone, if I can make it through this, meaning the oil crash, then I can make it through anything. Because if I can build a business that makes money, that grows, that has great clientele, when everybody around us is losing their jobs, then when things recover, I'm laughing, right? So that's how I knew that I was really in the right place. And it's that kept me going all the years through all the shit and the craziness and the stuff of oh my God, I made the hugest mistake in the world. What am I doing? That's why I know that I am perfectly positioned to help the students that I want to help in the programs that I have through Dare to Begin. That's what I'm getting down to, is to understand, why are you the best fit for these people? Now, if you're doing something, say, for example, that's massage or chiropractor, I like to go back to those because in my mind, they're totally different from interior design or education. You might be thinking, well, I don't have anything that's dramatic like that. But there's a reason that you decided to do massage or chiropractic, right? There's a reason that you wanted to do that. And I can't even begin to imagine what those reasons would be. It's not for me to know. It's for you to figure out and to find out and discover for yourself. Why am I best suited to serve the clients that I want to help, right? It might be for you, let's say you're a chiropractor. Maybe you had a sports injury. And the chiropractor that you worked with when you were younger was phenomenal. Or maybe they were terrible and you're like, I want to change this. I know people can be better served by this, right? So I want you to think about, why are you the best fit for your perfect client? Okay, and then the final step on how to get clear on who you're serving is to lead with passion. This might sound like a funny step. The first step was starting with why. The second step was defining who. And then the third step was coming back to the why, understanding why you're here to serve these people. And now you're saying, Amy, what does passion have to do with it? Well, people will know whether you're passionate about what you do or not. It comes through. I'm sure that you can think of an example where you have gone and employed someone's services that really aren't passionate about what they do. And it comes across and it doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good on your end. And you can only imagine that they're not feeling a whole lot of excitement or satisfaction in their job. So why, lead with the passion. Think about, and this is where the why is so important. I'm passionate about creating a home that is really about my design clients because that's what I needed. I'm passionate about bringing out practical, applicable programs and courses for my students because, I just think, man, if I had what I've developed now, if I had that when I started, holy shit, could I have done more? It's just, that's what I think about. That's why I'm passionate about bringing it out because I know that it would have been a game changer for me if I'd had this information then. And if I could access this information. So when I price my programs, so the full one, the Lost to Launched Academy, is priced at $997 US. And that might seem like a lot in a way, but I want you to understand this. I paid $12,000 for a business program that ran over 2 years. And I learned a lot from the business program, but the thing that shocked me was the amount of stuff that I couldn't action on in the program because there was a ton of information and steps and tools and things that we were supposed to do that either required a team of people to be working with me. So as a solopreneur, not possible. There's only so many hours in the day. Or required a significant amount of investment capital. So I needed free money to be able to do these things, which again, as a brand new business, I'm struggling to make it work. Plus I'm paying these huge fees because I paid monthly for this $12,000. So I'm paying these fees for this program. Well, then that is the extra money that I have coming in for my business. It's going towards this program. There isn't any extra to be able to also do all these extra things. So when I priced my program, I wanted to, be sure that I created the program so that it was actionable, that it met people right where they are, right where they need to be. And I modeled my perfect client really off of me as much as reasonable. I mean, I'm not assuming I'm selling them all to me, but I understand what it's like to start from nothing and figure it out on the way. And I knew the frustrations that I had on the way. I knew the things that just drove me freaking crazy along the way. And I've gone through heartache trying to figure out how to not only make my business work and make it profitable, but holy cow, how do I actually make it, work so I feel good about it? What happens when things go shit sideways with a client like I had in the first year of my business, where all of a sudden I found myself sitting in front of a judge trying to get paid? Right? Those are the things that I put into the course. And then when I priced it, I thought about when I was starting out, when I first began, I had so little capital that was extra. I had to be able to pay for, I bought a brand new computer. I needed to be able to pay for websites and hostings and email and office supplies. And I mean, you name it, right? You're starting a business, there's a lot of stuff that comes along the way. I had to pay for all of those. There wasn't some angel investor giving me money to do those. I had to figure out how to make it all work. So then when I priced it, I'm like, okay, all this stuff is already coming along. So I want this to be within reach for that entrepreneur, for that person right there in that moment in their business where they are at the beginning and they know they can do it and they believe with everything they've got that this is possible, but the dollars in their bank account are not huge. So when I priced it, that's what I kept in mind. So it's a careful balance between the value of the information and the position that my students would be in. right? So that's why I thought about it. And when I want to come back to the idea of leading with passion, if it's not coming through in my voice, I don't know how it's not possible. You must be not listening. But if it's not coming through my voice somehow, you got to hear that there's passion in my voice, in me, for my students, right? I am so excited about the potential for them. And I'm going to be totally honest with you. At the moment, I literally have one student, and that student is related to me, and I'm totally okay with that. And I am taking beta students right now. So if you're interested in the Lost to Launched Academy, I'm offering an opportunity to take the entire program, not for the $997, but for $197 US. You still get everything that's in the program. So you still get the Facebook group. You still get, I think there's a couple bonuses. I'll be honest, there's a lot going on in my mind, so I can't remember exactly what's all included, but you get everything for the $197. And the reason that I'm doing it that way is that I want to make sure that what I believe works and the way that I think it makes logical sense to move through these steps, that it does for others. Because even though I've modeled my perfect client after myself, I want to be sure that this perfect client, again, understanding that this is going to mold and evolve and change a little bit over time, that it works for who I want it to work for, right? So if you're interested in the opportunity, then I encourage you, I'm going to add it in the show notes, but if you go to daretobegin.net/launch, and then the coupon code, I believe, is launch. I'll double check and I'll put it in the show notes. So if you are listening to this on Spotify or iTunes or any of the other platforms, then go to daretobegin.net/blog. I believe this is episode 27. You'll find it. Anyway, it's the one about how to get clear and who you're serving. I know you guys are probably thinking, Amy, you should be more prepared right now. I wasn't thinking that I was going to position this for you guys. So I'll put the coupon code in the show notes for sure to let you know. And then again, you just go to daretobegin.net/launch, which is the sales page that you'll find has all the information in the course. You'll see all the modules. There's 10 modules that are included in the program, and you can see exactly what's included. And then you just do the one pay, and then you enter the coupon code on the next screen. So you can beta test the Lost to Launch program. This option, I'm keeping it available at this price until October 15th of 2019. So if you're listening to this on October 14th, by some random chance, get your butt in there because it's only good until the 15th of October 2019. All right, so quick recap here. How to get clear on who you're serving. Start with why. So think about, why do you want to serve in this way? Why do you feel you're best to serve? Then define the who. Again, get super specific and allow yourself time for this perfect client to evolve and clarify over time. Be open to the information coming in and be as specific as possible. Step number 3 is to come back to why. Why these specific people and why you, right? We talked about that. You can head on further back in the episode if you need to get a little bit more clarification. And then the 4th step is to lead with passion. And the reason that you need to lead with passion when you're getting clear on who you're serving is that is what's going to be that connection point, that sticky glue that's going to draw you into your perfect client. Okay, that's it that I got for today. Guys, I'm so freaking excited to share this with you. Tomorrow, so at the time of this recording, it's a Tuesday. Tomorrow, I have on my calendar an interview scheduled with Paige Cole. So if you're not familiar with her, I suggest you get familiar with her. You can find her on Instagram. I believe it's _Paige_Cole. I think if you search Paige Cole, PAIGECOLE, you'll find her. I think she'll come up. So Paige Cole I've been following her for a few months now. I love what she's putting out. I reached out to her about a month or 6 weeks ago to ask if she'd be interested in doing an interview for you guys. I am so freaking excited to do the interview with her. I'm so excited about what she's going to bring out to you. And I have that interview scheduled for tomorrow. I'm having a little bit of a fangirl moment. I'll be totally honest. So Paige Cole I like to think of her as like the manifestation, the money manifestation, just magnet. She is, we're going to discuss her her target customer, her niche. I'm so excited to have her tell you about the niche that she's chosen to go after. You're probably going to have a little bit of a jaw drop moment because you're going to be like, oh my gosh, really? I'm super excited. That's the reason I actually reached out to her for the interview, because I love that she's standing in her power and going after this niche. And I'm not going to tell you anymore because you got to listen to next week's interview. So that's going to be next week's podcast episode. So definitely stay tuned. And again, if you're listening to this later than the beginning of August, then go check out the Paige Cole interview, because even though I haven't done it yet, I know it's going to be good. And finally, if you are loving it, please let me know on an iTunes review or give me a shout out on the DMs and Instagram. So my focus is really to be on Instagram. I'm on Facebook a little bit, but I'll be honest with you guys, I'm not the best Facebooker. Instagram is really where I'm at. So you can find me at Instagram at IDareToBegin. And I would love it if you take a screenshot that you're listening to this and then post it in your stories and tag me, because I'd love to, know what you're listening to, and I'd love to give a little bit of shout out on my page as well for you guys. So please feel free to take a screen capture, list it in your Instagram stories or in your feed, what have you, and then just tag me in it so I can celebrate you. All right, team, that's it. My coffee is 100% full into effect. I've been doing a little experiment this week. I noticed that so when I go away for vacation, I promise I'm going to wrap this up. But when I go away for vacation, I generally know that means that I'm not going to get any coffee. So I can't drink brewed coffee. It makes my stomach not feel well. So I have an espresso machine at home. So I make myself a latte every morning. I know, sounds super luxurious. It kind of is. That machine has paid for itself, I'm sure, like 40 times over by this time, because I have a coffee once a day. But I noticed after coming back yesterday, I had my morning coffee and my stomach was a little bit upset. And so I'm experimenting now with like adjusting how I pull the espresso shot and maybe not taking as long a pull. And so when I say pull an espresso shot, when they actually have the water like come through the espresso, that's what they call pulling an espresso shot. I used to be a barista, so every now and again that old lingo comes out. So anyway, my coffee is 100% in my veins right now, and I think that probably I've been beginning to speak faster and faster as this episode has been wrapping up. So I'm going to go enjoy the effects of my coffee and get a hell of a lot done. And I wish you a phenomenal afternoon. I so look forward to seeing you over on the Instagrams. Remember, you can find me at IDareToBegin. And please, please, please join me next week for the interview with Paige Cole. So freaking excited. And if you want to learn a little bit more about her before the episode or after the episode, you can find her at _Paige_Cole. She's on Instagram. All right. So looking forward to seeing you next week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.